just been at your house for dinner.
Yes.
And you're an amazing cook.
No.
And I was a bit nervous about coming because...
We might try to convert you.
No, not about that.
Yeah, exactly.
Not about that. I was nervous of doing the wrong thing.
Really?
Yeah. But I always like, I've been to dinner at the house of Orthodox Jewish people, and I just did everything wrong.
Right.
I did the thing at the wrong time, and I said the thing, and I did the stuff, and I just was all wrong.
Right.
And I just get worried that I'll do something wrong because I just don't know.
You don't want,
You know,
feeling.
we broke the Ramadan fast, except I was only fasting from after the tea
cab
time. No, I didn't eat in the cab ride over.
Pay respect.
That's right. I had fasted for about 35 minutes, but you had been fasting all day, and I didn't know what that involved, but really it just involved eating.
I did, I said to you, there's no ceremony. There's a lot of happiness because we've been fasting.
I think I still ate faster than you guys did, though.
Well, because I think by this stage in Ramadan, your stomach's shrunk. So all day
you don't eat from 5 a.m. to...
Yeah, from before sunrise. So from today, it was at about 5:15, I think, we start fasting. And we don't drink either. So I think your stomach shrinks.
And what if you get dehydrated, or what if you're ill? Or...
it should never be damaging to your health. So if you're pregnant, if you're sick, if you have diabetes, if there's any reason why it would be bad for you, if you're breastfeeding, if it would ever be bad for your health, then you shouldn't do it. It's as simple as that. And that's a religious stipulation. No, kids don't do it.
And older people.
No, anyone that it would be bad for their health shouldn't do it. It's that.
And do you run very low in energy?
I do, but I think that's because I have a strong caffeine addiction, which you may know as probably.
Just a couple of coffees.
So, because I go through caffeine withdrawal, so I think that's why I get sleepy.
Yeah.
And also, I think also because you get tired, you stay, even if you stay, each night I never seem to get in bed before midnight, and then I'm starting each day at 5 a.m. So it's just
exhausting.
When you're doing that for a month and you're fasting as well, it just...
Now, I thought when I arrived that you might not have your scarf on. Hijab?
Yes. No, normally... Normally, if it were just you, I wouldn't be wearing it. But then I was going to need to put it on anyway for the camera. Yeah. And also, my hair's looking hideous at the moment.
Yeah, mine was too, but I didn't have a hat. Yeah.
It looks good.
Okay, so
it's handy to...
I had an experience that I wrote about recently when I was on a plane and the woman was in full niqab, and... Is that how I say it? And... I was fascinated, and I was having a big stare. And
that was a great piece. I've had a lot of Muslims come up to me and say, "Did you see it?" Yeah, a lot of Muslims come up. Did you see Mia's piece? Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
And a lot of non-Muslims actually. A lot of people talking about that piece.
Okay, so I was then when I looked around and she'd taken it off. She'd still had her hair covered, but she'd taken her face off, and I was so shocked because I thought, should I look or should I not look? And then I thought, well, what's the not the sin, because it's not a sin, is it? But it's what's the thing that either no one's allowed to see it, or is it just women? Explain to me.
So the general rule is that so I don't wear my headscarf at home. So I don't wear it in front of my husband or my kids or family. I don't need to wear it in front of family. I don't need to wear it in front of women. So not if it was just you and there was no camera and my hair wasn't looking horrendous.
I'd get to see it.
Yeah, and what a disappointment that would be.
Could I see it before I go?
It's
because I've always wondered what.
But then you need to know that I've got hijab hair. When I take it off, it's like when you get hat hair. It's flat.
Because you are one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen, and I've always thought that about you. And I've always wondered what your hair is like. And it probably will be a massive disappointment because I imagine that you've got rapunzel. No, I don't know what your hair would look like.
Well, could we reschedule and just let me go to the hairdresser?
Could you?
Colour and straighten?
I've got some questions. Could you send me a photo, or would that be against?
I would if I
deleted it.
No, because so long as I knew you as a trustworthy person, which I know you are, one thing that you'd be like, "Hey gang, everyone, look at this."
Twitter.
Yeah, probably not. Probably not. No, not on Twitter. No.
So it's that your hair is something between you and your husband, or between you and God.
Yeah, it's not even that it's just between my husband, because like I said, I can show it to you, I can show it to my kids and family. I think it's and it's definitely, there is this aspect of it being covering my hair as an act of worship to God. Because even if I'm home by myself and there's no one else here, when it's time to pray, I still have to cover my hair. So it's not that hair is sacred per se. It's no more sacred than my elbow. Right. But I cover my elbow as well. It's like what you wear at home is different to when you go out into society. And different people have understood this in different ways. Some women say it's like a desexualization of the public sphere. So that it's meant to be, when you're in the public sphere, there is not this great emphasis on what a woman's chest is like or her hair is like, and it's more meant to be about each person is taken on their own merits and less about their physicality.
Which, ironically, is quite a feminist sentiment.
Yeah. Well, see, we wouldn't see it as ironic at all. There's a lot of Muslim feminists, or even Muslims who don't prescribe to feminism, still see the act of covering as empowering and valid and all that sort of thing.
Because you're taking back control of... See, Orthodox Jewish women cover their hair too, but they wear wigs, so people aren't aware of that.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I can spot it easily, but it's exactly the same.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and
see, that's another thing that the Jews and the Muslims have in common.
We have...
Circumcision, the pig, not eating the pig.
No.
And the covering of the hair.
And we're late for everything.
Ah, dash.
Jewish standard
and very
time.
good cooking, but from what I tried tonight. Back to the bit where you became Muslim.
Yes. Well, it was when I was 17, I just, I started to wonder why I believed what I did. And I wondered, is it because it's just what I've been raised to believe? Or is it because I actually, of my own self, think it's true?
How religious were you? Was your upbringing?
I was raised in a nominal Christian household. My mum was a pretty funky Christian in that she had all these radical ideas about God, that God's really a black woman and everyone knows the Bible's just all a, you know, she's had all these...
So she was like a 70s feminist Christian.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Very,
Yeah.
So that was cool because, you know, I certainly didn't feel restricted in my belief or anything like that. And I guess that her attitude helped me to sort of feel like, well, then I need to work out what I think too. And so I knew I believed, well, I thought I believed in God, but I guess even when I turned 17, it was about thinking, well, do I actually believe there's a God? I don't know. And so I decided to look into different religions and different approaches and all that sort of thing. And Islam just happened to be the one that, much to my amazement, made the most sense to me.
You knew nothing about it?
No, nothing at all. All I knew about Islam was Not Without My Daughter. I don't know if you ever saw that.
Sally Field.
Yeah.
Not a great advertisement.
No, strangely.
Not terrific propaganda.
I can't believe I didn't become Muslim earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was all I really knew. And so I started looking, and I just came across more and more about Islam that made a lot of sense to me when I sort of stripped back all the garbage and what I saw Muslims doing in the name of Islam and what I saw on, you know, garbage.
What's garbage?
Well,
what would you say is garbage?
Well, a lot of the idiotic things Muslims do and say is garbage, but also a lot of the sensationalist journalism out there about Islam is also garbage. And I had to get back, well, what does a religion seem to say about itself? What do the scholars about Islam, what are the true practitioners, the sincere people seem to say about it? And it was getting back to the roots of the religion that really opened my eyes and made me go, wow, this makes a lot of sense to me. And that was really confronting. And I think it's why it took...
Why was it confronting? Because you never saw yourself...
No, and it seemed so foreign to me and so different to everything I thought I knew. So it was a really difficult process to decide to convert, even though converting in and of itself was very easy. There's no test or anything like that. But it was difficult because it was hard to picture myself in this faith. This idea that what seems to be so true, yet so other, was difficult to sort of...
What made it feel other?
Well, I guess I didn't really know many Muslims, and all the Muslims that I did know or know of were all foreigners. I didn't really know any or many converts to Islam, and they dressed differently, and so much seemed different to what I understood about the way God was to be worshipped. Like, you go to a modern Christian church service, which is very funky and cool and great music, and that was something I understood. You know, that was my frame of reference, and yet going to the mosque was so different to that. And not negatively different, but just so different.
So other.
Yeah. And so I guess trying to work out for myself, can I fit in this? Is there a place for me in there? And I guess in many ways I sort of feel like that's something I'm still, even, 13 years later, I'm still trying to find my place within the community, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing.
But what an extraordinary thing to start doing when you were 17. I mean, most people at that age are sort of exploring sex and alcohol and drugs at that age, finding where they fit with all those things. To then say, okay, I'm going to investigate a spiritual path. What did you... I'm not going to ask what you had to give up, because that's coming in as a very negative way, but tell me about deciding to wear hijab.
I think that was something that I really felt fine with by the time I became Muslim, because I think the headscarf is so in your face and it's so oft discussed in Western society. Like it's just like you don't seem to be able to get away from the discussion about hijab. When a Muslim woman, when the topic of Muslim women came up, that's always there. Either because she's wearing it or because she's not. And generally, the title of the article or the show is something like Beyond the Veil, Lifting the Veil, Beneath the Veil, Uncovering what's underneath that veil. You know, there's always that play on...
Veil of silence, veil of secrecy.
Veil of mystery, exactly.
Yeah.
So it was something that I knew I had to reconcile within myself before I became Muslim. What do I think about this? How do I feel about it? And because, like I said, it's such a big topic, you know, there's a lot of books written about it as well from the Muslim perspective too. So I was able to read a lot and talk to women who wore it. And also Muslim women who didn't, and work out for myself, well, where do I stand on this? And so by the time I became Muslim, I felt really fine about it.
How old were you then?
I was 19.
And tell me about the first day you wore it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I remember being nervous. I worried about how I was going to be treated. I wore it to work because I used to work at Hoyt's at the cinemas, and I trotted up to work, and I was really worried just about how customers were going to react and other people. I was nervous, really scared actually, about what people would say. But I think in the end, it's like I knew this is who I am. This is part of who I am, and I know this is a step that I want to take. That this is something that I want to do, and it's part of me. Not that, you know, wearing hijab is my identity per se, but being Muslim is part of my identity, and this is an
outward expression of it, like wearing a crucifix,
or a yarmulke or anything like that.
And is it something that you'd flirted with a bit at home or in your like, you know, before, or is it just, you know, once you get on, you can't get off?
I'm trying to remember. I think before I became Muslim, I wore it once or twice to the mosque when I went with friends. But that was about it. It was pretty much, it was only a few days after I became Muslim, I thought, well, I want to wear it and I believe in the hijab and that sort of thing. So I put it on and that was it.
And it's that your hair is something to only be shared with...
I think the way it is the hijab is like a mobile private space is the best way to put it. So
that's beautiful thing.
Yeah, and I think it's, and like I said, it's not that your hair is any more or less significant than your knee. You know, I cover my knees as well.
Do you?
Yeah. I just even I've got a hole in my knees. You see, I've got something in there.
I did see that. But is it actual a knee thing or it's just a body?
Just a body. All I would show is my face, hands, and feet.
Right. A little bit of wrist.
Yeah, that's because I've got long arms and nothing's like that.
Okay, so face, hands and feet.
Yeah. You know, the way we dress is this tangible reminder of our connection to God. So in that sense, I never see it as a negative thing, and I've never felt held back by wearing my hijab or anything like all that. All the negativity that I've ever encountered from wearing hijab has been from non-Muslims who don't like the fact that I wear it.
What do they say?
Oh, you know...
Do you get it? Do you get it every day?
Not every day. I think, but I kind of like being in academia is a bit of a bubble. I think because you know, even people that don't like it there would not say it to your face. Yeah. And you know, sort of left-leaning intelligentsia sort of crowd that's there. And also because I'm a lecturer, my students aren't going to come and say anything, otherwise I fail them. So.
The biggest misconception, obviously, is that it is an act of oppression. Knowing you for all of 5 seconds, I would have is enough to know that no one ain't going to be oppressing you, baby. And also, Waleed is not the oppressive type.
No, he's not.
So why does this endure? I mean, the woman that I met was laughing, and her husband's like, I wish she'd take it off. She's so stubborn, she won't take it off. So is it... Anyway, let's talk to that a bit.
I think this idea about the oppressed Muslim woman has existed for a long time.
Because there are Muslim women who are oppressed.
Absolutely, like there are women who are oppressed everywhere. And but I would never pretend that there isn't a very grim situation for a number of Muslim women around the world. Like, you know, we're not doing any service to those women by pretending everything's awesome. Yeah. Women in Afghanistan, that's great. They're loving life, you know. I mean, but to sort of say that confine everything to the one issue of their covered, therefore they're oppressed because they're Muslim. Like, it all comes down to this one pinhead, is idiotic and insulting to them and their situation and everything that they do to struggle against it and all that sort of thing. But I think this idea that Muslim women are oppressed have existed for a long time in the Western imagination. And I think, you know, since the first Western sort of contact with Muslims, especially, you know, if you look at some of the literature on the harem, when Westerners started first getting in contact with the Turkish harems, the way they viewed Muslim women and the way they dressed was equally negative, but instead of seeing her as oppressed and sexually repressed, they saw her as this, like, sexual maniac, and her veil was part of her lasciviousness, and she just couldn't control herself, and she was there as a sex slave for her husband's every wish, and they just lived in this hotbed of sexuality.
Is that your life, pretty much?
Yeah, pretty much. As you can see, it's just...
Mine too.
But that makes sense, because that was at a time when the West really was quite puritanical and saw itself, and women's virtue was very much about being very straight-laced. It was at a time when they were putting skirts on piano legs because no one wanted to see piano. So that's the Muslim woman was the opposite of that.
Yeah.
So now, when the West likes to see itself as women are very sexually liberated and we feel confident about women's sexuality and women can do whatever they want, now the Muslim woman, and again, the way she dresses, is the opposite of that. So she's oppressed, she can't do anything, that sort of thing. It's an interesting way that the Western society, as much as I hate to talk about the West and the Muslim world because it's such a fake dichotomy, but it's interesting the way they seem to put up a mirror to themselves and say she is the, not a mirror, more like she's the camera negative of us.
Yes, yeah. Instead of saying this is just a decision that she makes in her own right that's got nothing to do with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Or the men in her life. And some Muslim women are forced to wear it and some aren't. Like, there's this blanket generalisation that we can make about, you know, essentially 1 billion people. Is something that people seem reluctant to let go of. I think because it helps them to feel better about their own situation. The way we look at Muslim women makes us feel better about ourselves.
Can I ask you some technical questions about it? You've got 2 things going on. Which looks awesome. How does that work?
Well, there's no... In terms of that, there's no...
Is that the rules?
No.
So you can freestyle.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And you've got lots of different... we've had conversations before about
stacks.
Your different veils and...
A multitude of colours and fabrics and designs, everything.
But it's interesting, when I was in Paris, I noticed that the Muslim women that I saw were wearing lots of different fabrics and colours and everything like that, whereas the women that I've seen here, it's just black, generally, except for you.
Right. Really?
Why is that?
I don't know.
I mean, occasionally I see, but more often it's just black.
Definitely there's a cultural element to it. So, for example, you go to a country like Saudi, or Saudi's a good example, and the women are mostly in black. The Emirates,
black everything, black
long robe with an abaya and a black scarf. Whereas, for example, you go to some of the African countries, it's really bright and it's more just like a head wrap. You go to Malaysia, it's a very different design and colour. Again, it's a very distinct way they do their hijab. You go to Turkey, it's very distinctly Turkey, very unique. So I think each culture has sort of adapted its own way of doing it. And what we're seeing now is that in Western countries like the States and Australia and England and Canada, a Western Islamic interpretation is emerging. In the way that women dress and in other things, but in the way that women dress, and you can see it's unique, and that there's now Western Muslim female fashion designers that are creating fashions and those sort of things.
So this would be an expression of that.
Yeah, and it's also, in the end, it's individual identity. Just like some women like wearing black and that's what they want to wear.
Yeah.
You know, I wear different colours all the time.
What's it like giving up your hair?
Well, I guess in many ways I don't feel like I have, because, you know, I still go to the hairdresser.
You still have it and you go to the hairdresser.
Yeah.
How do you do that technically?
Well, the hairdresser...
When no one's meant to see.
Well, it's fine for women to see my hair. So I go to a hairdresser where there's only female cutters. And
what about gay men?
Actually, that's interesting. You know, from a legal perspective, it's fine for gay men to see your hair. So actually, the hairdressing should be... Not that I'm making generalisations.
Not that we're making generalisations at all. But
I
interestingly, gay men... It's okay.
Yeah, there's an interesting theological...
Is it in the Quran?
That gay men can see your hair. Under the chapter of hairdressing.
Where are these rules?
Under the chapter of being fabulous. Well, it's interesting. The Quran is not a rule book, and it would be such an unfortunate way to look at it. There are the thing is,
like where do you find what you can and cannot do? Well, especially as a convert.
Yeah. Okay. So you've got the Quran, which is our holy book, but like the Torah and the Christian Bible, the New Testament, that sort of thing. These are texts that people, since the advent of the religion, people and scholars have reread and interpret it through their own lens. So there are modern day scholars and there are classical traditional scholars, all of them who've looked at a multitude of issues, from food to how we pray to how we be the best way to achieve closeness to God through certain types of prayer, all that sort of stuff. And interestingly, female dress actually isn't addressed that much in the classical texts. Male dress is given a lot more attention. So it's interesting nowadays that women's dress is so much more fixated upon.
Is there something that men do to signify?
Well, it's seen that strongly recommended. Some say strongly recommended. Others would say compulsory for a man to have a beard.
Or stubble.
Well, yeah. Well, and again, what counts as a beard?
Does Waleed have a beard? Really?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, so that would be.
Others would say it should be a bit longer.
Right.
But some, again, there's
but still something.
Yeah. And again, like women, men are supposed to dress modestly. Right. So they should wear loose clothing that doesn't. So, for example, again, you go to
no muscle t-shirts.
No, that would be totally wrong. No glow mesh.
Is that a problem for Waleed dressing modestly?
Well, again, if we look at the chapter on fabulousness in the Quran, no glow mesh.
That whole shirtless trend where men just walk around like DVD stores and stuff with no shirt, so he couldn't be down with that.
No.
What a shame for him.
It's so restrictive, our religion, isn't it?
I wanted to ask you about being a convert, because often when you convert to a religion, you are more devout than someone who was born into it. And in many cases you have to be, because when you're born into religion, in most cases you don't question that. That's just, it's not a choice, it's just a life circumstance. Whereas when you choose a religion like you did, you're often more committed. I've got some friends who converted to Judaism, and their husbands, they're the ones that go to synagogue and drive the Judaism with the family. Their husbands are like, oh, whatever, they're eating bacon sandwiches and not worrying about it. Is that something that you kind of, not that that Waleed's not necessarily devout, but is there a difference in your faith, if that makes sense?
Between mine and Waleed's?
Yeah, as being someone who chose the religion as opposed to someone who was born into it.
I don't know, because it's hard again to know how much of it is just my personality type, and that's Waleed's personality type and that sort of thing. Definitely I know being Muslim and Islam is something that's really, really important to me, and it's something very personal to me, and gives me so much meaning and anchors me in all these sort of things. And maybe my practice and interpretation might be different to Waleed's. It might be the same. I don't know, but I think, like I said, that could just be a personality type issue as well. And I've got friends who are converts, some who are extremely practicing, and others are just whatever. Like your Jewish male friends who are just like, I don't really fast Ramadan, and whatever's good for the kids or whatever. Like they're much more relaxed. And I guess it comes down to the personality type and how much do you attach to the religion in and of itself. And I think also that can change during your life. At certain stages of your life, I think you can be more connected to your community or to God than others, and that's just human nature. We just wax and wane and go up and down.
What are some of the other signposts of your daily life that are affected by being Muslim? Like, what are some of the things that you do?
Okay, well, we pray 5 times a day.
5 times a day.
So the first one is before sunrise. We get up early to pray, and then often I go back to bed.
I was going to say, what if you're hungover, but
yeah,
that cancels that out.
Not too often.
Yeah.
So there's 5 daily prayers, which is like a good realignment, I guess, is the way I see it. The 5 times a day, you're sort of realigning yourself to your purpose and your belief and what you're trying to do in this world. Where am I going? Am I being the best person I can be? And so often for me, that time is like a real mental recheck of like, am I being the best mother I can be to my kids? Am I being the best friend that I can? Really trying to reflect on what am I doing, which sounds very me focused.
But it's jumping off the treadmill and just being present. Even being present 5 times a day. 5 times more than I'm present in a day. So surely that's a massive benefit.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's something about Islam that I didn't expect when I became Muslim, is it really taught me self-discipline. I'm a very naturally undisciplined person, as we were talking about before. Everything's instant gratification. I want everything now and don't want to wait, and I'm lazy and I can't be bothered doing anything. Becoming Muslim has really taught me that I can be self-disciplined, and also the value in self-discipline, which has been a really nice awakening for me. Ramadan is an excellent exercise in self-discipline and self-control. And using that as a vehicle to get somewhere. The fasting in Ramadan is not the point. The fasting in Ramadan is the vehicle to something else, to greater integrity and self-development. So there's the 5 daily prayers. Obviously, there's the way that
how do the prayers? Do you have to physically do something, say something?
Yeah, well, in Islam, we've got 2 types of prayers. There's the one that we do 5 times a day, which is like, it's prescribed. It's set. We say them in Arabic because the Quran.
Have to say them out loud.
Some we say out loud and some we say quietly. But even the ones out loud, we're not shouting. You know, you can say them very quietly. And they're set prayers that we pray. And then during the rest of the day, any time that you want to pray to God in any language you want, English, Chinese, whatever, you can do it. Driving the car, on the treadmill, washing the dishes, you can communicate with God. So we've sort of got the 2 different types of prayers. So yeah,
do you have to face Mecca? Do you have to be on the floor?
Well, when we pray, we do have set movements. We're standing up.
Is it like a moving meditation in a way?
Almost, yeah. It is in the sense that when we pray, it's meant to be our mind and our spirit and our body are all praying to God, and all in prostration to God. So ideally it should be somewhere clean. But the idea is it says in the, as part of our belief, all of the world is a masjid. All of the world is a place you can pray, so long as it's clean. So you wouldn't pray in the toilet. But anywhere else, and so that means that I've prayed in some pretty funny places. Movie theatres, at the MCG, parks, those sort of things, car parks.
I've never seen that.
Well, we normally don't try to make a big show of it because it tends to alarm people.
Yeah, but so how do you do it?
I normally would try to find somewhere discreet and off to the side and quiet.
At what hours of the day? Before?
Well, they're windows of time, so it's not like right now is the time to pray, drop everything and pray. You've normally got windows which sort of range from an hour and a half to 3 or even longer hours in summer. So, and praying only takes 5 or 10 minutes, so it doesn't have to take a huge amount of time. You can go and do it and come back to your desk or whatever, and people don't often know.
And do you do it? So when you're at work, where do you do it at work?
So, like at my work, for example, I often just pray in my office, or I find you can find a sick bay is often popular for Muslim employees, an empty meeting room, those kind of things.
Really?
Yeah. I think, like I said before, it's like this overriding gentle blanket on my life is the way I put it, in that it really permeates every aspect of my life. And I don't mean that in a sort of preachy, happy, I'm wonderfully religious and life is awesome, but it's this idea of constant consciousness about the way you exist and the way you interact with others and the world, and always being conscious of God and why is life unfolding the way that it is, and how is the best way that I can respond to this. So while there's the rituals like the praying 5 times a day and fasting in Ramadan and giving charity and those sort of things, it's also just this gentle pervasiveness of faith that it goes through my life, that I think is always there, just sort of gently tugging on my heart, always saying to me, am I doing the best job that I can be now, and is this what's really important? And I find that can only be useful in so many aspects of my life, especially motherhood and being a wife and a friend and work. It can only be good if I truly try to engage with it, and it's a good ego discipline. It's really...
Tell me just quickly, to finish off, about your family and their relationship with your conversion and your life now. Your birth family.
They were upset when I first became Muslim, and I think especially my mum, because there was this, which I can understand as a mother now, this fear of the unknown of what is my child getting involved in,
Is she joining a cult?
Yeah, and especially when all my mum knew about Islam was pretty negative. It's understandable.
So most people know about Islam.
Yeah, why on earth would I want my daughter to be... This is awful. So there was a real fear and apprehension and maybe even anger about me becoming Muslim. But you know, now 13 years on, things are brilliant, fantastic. We have an amazing relationship. You know, they buy halal food when we come to Eid, and we give each other Christmas presents and Eid presents, and you know, it works. You know, it works. It's nice. I think we've all just sort of calmed down a bit.
Calm down a bit in a way.
Well, I was quite zealous when I first became Muslim.
That's what I meant. That's what I was alluding to about the convert, the zealousness of the convert.
Yeah, right.
You know,
I think that was definitely
it's like falling in love, isn't it? You've discovered something
so
and you're...
True. That's so true. I think definitely back then I was much more zealous. Much more black and white, and not only do I think that was a function of being a convert, but also my age. You know, I was 19, and I think that's often
everything's pretty black and white when you're 19.
And so, you know, you're at uni, either you join the Socialist Alliance and you become Muslim, or you join the Young Liberals. So you're like, So it was a function of my age as well. And then, just as I got a bit older and was exposed to more things and a broader way of looking at my religion, that I realised, whoa, you know, I can really turn the volume down on this, and it's still not only is it an equally valid way to be Muslim, but maybe even for myself it's a more authentic way to be Muslim.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
It's just been so gorgeous to meet you finally.